All right, everybody, get your unit circle and let's get started. So today we're going to solve an equation, of course, but you're going to need the unit circle so that you can look up the answers. But before we can do that, what's going to happen is we're going to find the angle. Right? So looking for the angle in the first quadrant is probably the best spot, and we're going to just call that angle. That's the angle. Then if you want to take that angle, and if you want to move it around, just have to look for it in the unit circle, right? Or if you're in degrees, then we can just do some numbers, right? So if you know that, let's say you know that the reference angle is 30 degrees, for example. To put the angle into this quadrant, you just have to do 180 minus 30, or minus your angle. And then, of course, because this quadrant, the third quadrant, is a little bit larger, it'd be 180 plus your angle. And here it'd be 360 minus your angle. Because remember, we always, minus your angle, sorry. We always work from the x-axis. So we're working from the 180, 360 line. We're never working from the 90 or 270 line. In radians, honestly, it might just be easier to look around on the unit circle for the answer. Some tips. This is where they're all positive. In the second quadrant, the sine is positive. In the third quadrant, tangent is positive. And of course, in the fourth quadrant, the cosine is positive. So that might help you kind of narrow down where to look. And again, that acronym was All Scholars Take Calculus. Let's get started on these. You can see we are doing radians, so we're 0 to 2 pi. That's where it tells you. And so the question is angles whose tangent equals 1. Well, tangent is sine over cosine. So basically we're looking for where the sine and the cosine are exactly the same. Tangent's positive here, all scholar, and here. And so along that line, it would be pi over 4. And then, of course, down the third quadrant, it would be 5 pi over 4. For this one, we just want it to be word equals number. So we've got to move some numbers around here first. And then we divide both sides by 2. So now we have that the sine squared is equal to 1/2. When you take the square root, we don't really mess with the angle. The angle's kind of protected. We take the square root of everything else. So what happens on this side is it's just the word goes back to normal. And since we took the square root, you get a positive and a negative. And I'm going to rationalize this because the radical 2 over 2 is what's on the unit circle. So because we want positive and negative, we want one answer in every quadrant, which is your pi over 4. Remember, sine is your y value. And then over here in the second quadrant, 3 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, and 7 pi over 4. So square root gives you an answer in every quadrant. Unless it's 1. Right? The square root of 1 won't give you that, or square root of 0 won't give you that either. So again, we want it to be word equals number. So we move the numbers first. So negative 6 times the cosecant of x equals 12. And we'll divide by negative 6. So now we have word equals number. Well, we don't do cosecant, so we're going to do the reciprocal of both sides. So you want to translate this for yourself a little bit. The 1/2 is perfect, but the 1 over cosecant, that's not really what we would say. We would call that the sine. So we're looking for where does the sine equal negative 1/2? Well, just remember this. All scholars take calculus. So we're looking for it here and here, if that kind of helps you figure out where to look. Sine is the y value, and so that is going to be 7 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. Having that unit circle is really going to be important to help you figure out these answers. So here again, we just have to move some numbers around. And when you divide by radical 3, you can't have a radical in the bottom. So we have negative radical 3 over 3. Now some things with tangent. I know this is cotangent. Tangent, cotangent, pretty much the same. The reciprocal of radical 3 over 3 is just radical 3. It's a lot faster if you can just do it that way and not have to rationalize and just know that. Also, I gave you some hints a while back when we first did tangent and cotangent. If there's a 3 in the answer, then the answer is pi over 3. If there are 2 3's in the answer, then the answer is pi over 6 because it has 2 3's. So that's a little bit of a shortcut. Since tangent isn't written on your unit circle, it's a little bit hard to find. So if you know that little shortcut, at least you know you're looking for radical 3's. Now where is the tangent negative? Here and here. So second and fourth quadrant. So we're at 2 pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3. Now I want to show you this one, number 5, because when you subtract radical 3, we're not dividing by radical 3, we're just taking one away. So this is 4 radical 3 over here. And then divide by 8. So we get that the cosine of x is equal to radical 3 over 2. And so remember, cosine goes with x on the unit circle. And so we're at pi over 6. And then in the fourth quadrant, 11 pi over 6. Now your unit circle has degrees on it, as well as radians. So now we're going to look at the degree numbers. So we're going to subtract 9. Again, trying to get the word all by itself. If you don't like to write the theta symbol, you can use the letter x. It's no problem. It's the same thing. Oops, left off my equal sign. And then we'll divide by 4. So again, we're looking for angles that have a sign that are positive 1/2. That's in the first quadrant, that's 30 degrees. It's also in the second quadrant, 150 degrees. And then for this last one, if you add the 3, of course, you get 3, and then we'll divide by 9. So the cotangent squared of theta is equal to 1/3. And when you take the square root, I'm going to also rationalize this at the same time. So the cotangent of theta is equal to plus or minus, maybe I shouldn't have rationalized it, forgot it was cotangent. Let's not rationalize it. Equals plus or minus 1 over radical 3, right? Because the square root of 1 is 1. So we got to flip this over, and we got to flip over the 1 over cotangent. So this is going to become tangent equals radical 3. Well, it's the exact same answer as up here. All right, so I know we went through this. So when there's 1 radical 3, then the answer is pi over 3. So that'll at least help you where to look, but of course we want it in degrees. So pi over 3 is 60 degrees. Then we'd have also 120 degrees, because we want them all, right? Because it's positive and negative. And then 240 and 300. So flip the paper over and try the problems on the back, and when you have any issues, just stop, and then we'll go over those in class.